Hello everyone, it is up early, but I did want to get a video out, even though there's a video lag again. I don't even know if my video is going to cut off again, or my camera, I mean, but I just did a live on Instagram. I don't know if I'll keep it or not. It's regarding what's going on right now and the possibility of us getting into a world war. Yet again, I keep on saying that, but it seems like it's getting closer and closer instead of further away, despite the fact that a lot more information is coming out. And so this is from a few days ago. I'm going to reshare it.
Actively defending itself by hitting Iran's nuclear sites, which is something that President Joe Biden does not endorse. Do you not feel like this could lead to a likelihood of an all-out conventional war between Iran and Israel? And do you not agree with Joe Biden and his assessment?
I think the idea of allowing a genocidal, theocratic, unstable dictatorship that is desperate to avoid being overthrown by its own people to develop nuclear weapons is about the most dangerous and irresponsible thing that the world could ever allow. And if Israel were to stop that genocidal, theocratic, unstable government from acquiring...
So this is theocratic, conforming to God rule by Christian behavior. And so why, again, he's condemning Christians, Canada, Judeo-Christian, Christian-built, founded, fudging country, okay? People that risked their lives during many different wars in order to make Canada a sovereign nation. Clown. Respectfully, I get so upset, right? Because I voted for him and I knew I was going to regret it. I knew I was going to regret it because he posted this in October, and I have shared information with him. I have emailed this guy. I've tried to call his team, all of these friggin' people, and they're not listening. And I'm telling you this. And this is a reality check. Again, obviously, I didn't think when you look at the two options, Carney or Pierre, obviously Pierre would have been the better option, clearly. But this is where we're at, right? And again, he's a leader of the Conservative Party. He's getting ratioed on this, and he somehow pinned this. And this is why, Pierre, and people are trying to respectfully have these conversations with you, closed door, okay? Instead of having to try to shame you on social media. I don't want this as a job. It's not the job I want, right? It's and it's frustrating, and so there's such a bias, and so he's basically just losing his possibility of ever being reelected, and so it's frustrating because we need more of a conservative government at this point in order to build back the middle class and get again the oil industry on the forefront, etc. Oil being the second most abundant fluid in the world, and Canada being allegedly the second biggest country in the world. Why are we not doing this more within our own country? It makes absolutely no sense. And then exporting off to other countries so that we don't have that included in our carbon footprint, right? Mark Carney, we know you're grift too, you scammer slimeball. But so Roman Babar as well, I stopped on following him as well. He was good for COVID. Pierre wasn't, respectfully. But Roman Babar, again, a sellout. Rebel News with Ezra Levant. These people are selling us out, and they're radicalizing people in the process, and they're wondering why things aren't getting better. Wondering why you're not getting the votes that you want to get. This is why. One of the biggest reasons why. You're going to get us with this narrative, despite the fact that you're not the prime minister. You are still the leader of the Conservative Party, and you're supposed to be representing conservative values and what we want, right? And so when you're getting ratioed and you're not even listening, it's just very interesting. Yeah, of course they're gonna he's deleting things as well in this, but I want to see. Yeah, another reason you lost the election. Love this man. A genocidal, theocratic, unstable dictatorship. You just described Israel. Yeah, you know what? I honestly, to be honest with you, I actually thought that that's who he was talking about at first. Literally thought that's who he was talking about because he's describing what's going on in Israel right now. And when he was talking about this being Iran, I'm like, really? Conforming to God rule by Christian behavior is what the definition of what they're saying is theocratic, as an example. Anyway,
acquiring nuclear weapons, it would be a gift by the Jewish state to humanity.
Is it the Jewish state or the Israeli state? What are we doing here? is it not more secular?
So yesterday you said that you endorse.
Are there not Christians and Muslims and other religious groups also living in Israel right now?
Israel proactively defending itself by hitting Iran's nuclear sites, which is something that President Joe Biden does not endorse. Do you not feel like this could lead to a likelihood of an all-out conventional war between Iran and Israel? And do you not agree with Joe Biden and his assessment?
I think the idea of allowing a genocidal, theocratic, unstable dictatorship that is.
Yeah, he's literally describing Netanyahu. And, yep. Yep. And I will say one thing for Jagmeet Singh, even though he's awful, I will say, and he just completely destroyed his party, just to, again, just to form an alliance with the liberals. And Jagmeet was the only one that was on that election debate stage that was actually calling this out. And so I gave him kudos then. I'm giving him kudos again. And I understand why there were people that voted NDP. I'm surprised it was as low as it was, but not really getting because it was Jagmeet Singh. But if they would have pushed that more, they would have had more votes, like actually calling things out for what they were. But they didn't. They kept on siding with the liberals. Yeah. Concerned parents confront an alleged male school bus driver dressed in what appears to be pink schoolgirl outfit driving their children. The driver allegedly called his bus the Lolita line. Driving children around in cosplay. Cool. All right. I'm going to share this post.
News. As everyone knows, this is happening in Israel right now. That's a hypersonic missile. And give me just a minute. 1 sec. There's 5,000 to 6,000 Canadians stranded at the airport. Take a wild guess what our government does. This is the email they put out where they say Canadians in need of emergency consular assistance should contact the Embassy of Canada in Tel Aviv. They give the phone number during office hours. Does anyone else think that maybe this is the time where people don't work a 9 to 5 and as salaried employees at the embassy, I don't know, maybe should be available at all times, at all hours? But the response center in Ottawa, sure, they're available 24/7. But the people who actually need assistance in Tel Aviv, the 5,000 to 6,000 Canadians that are stranded, you got to wait. It's not Monday yet. Unbelievable.
It is.
This is breaking news. As everyone knows.
So as part of I'll stop sharing this. So I was teaching for a few years the Standing Rapid Deployment Team courses for Global Affairs Canada, for DART, for other organizations that like the people that respond like first on the ground or that work in the consulates. And so the training package I was doing, I'm saying it was large. It was like a week long. There was theoretical for days, and then a practical portion too for a couple of days. And yeah, it was great training. And in that, when we had them in their consulate posts or whatever you want to call them, depending on the country you're in, it would be you had to have 24-hour manning, staffing of these consulate posts. And that was something I was really big on. In fact, so much so that I built in scenarios that I would do myself because I was not only the course coordinator, but I had done the training. I did I was a role player for significant scenarios as well because of my training background, etc. in order to assist with this before I became the course coordinator. And so I was able to run these scenarios that I was doing in the middle of the night as a facilitator, and then provide a debrief after action report and things like that, like on site, which is what you do after a scenario plays out, and you get everyone involved. And so like early in the morning, depending on like, because there's multiple different places I would have to go to, like in a certain area, but anywhere between like 1 and 4 a.m. would be the times that I would be targeting these specific consular posts and playing out scenarios, whether it be, and it was an after hours thing. Also to make sure that they weren't sleeping, to make sure that they were manning their consular posts as well. And when they wouldn't, I would be very upset about that. Obviously, I'm professional, but it would be something that it was very important that they understood. And yeah, and then shift lists too. And I wanted to see the shift lists as well. This has been a few years now through COVID that I haven't been doing that piece anymore. I would argue that you absolutely need to get me back. I've emailed the directors, et cetera, as well. And I'm saying, like, look, like I was running the best training, and maybe I should follow up, because clearly what they're doing now, like whoever they have doing that piece for that training, they're not doing a good enough job, because that's something that would not fly if it was yeah, if it was anyone that I had trained working there, that would have not happened. And the people that I was working with, again, it's not a one-man show. I was working with incredible role players and facilitators who were also assisting with this, and they're looking at this like, what the fuck? Like,
This
really?
is breaking news. As everyone knows,
If you think the children,
And by the way, Ottawa, like their command center headquarters here in Ottawa, they're overwhelmed 24/7 basically. And so, and they're getting people calling them from multiple different countries. So it's not just even in Israel. And so they need to have people from on the ground that are also staffing and manning these consulate posts or whatever they're setting up in these areas in order to manage that piece, especially after hours, like I'm saying, on weekends. Like, people should be charged for this.
of illegal immigrants shouldn't be penalized for the crimes of their parents, but all white people need to accept blame for what someone did over 200 years ago. You must be a Democrat.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Testicles.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. People that are protecting rapists and murderers, and like literally like trying to protect them and stuff like that, even when people are trying to arrest them, like actual rapists, murderers, gang members, drug dealers, human traffickers, worst of the worst. And people are protesting this. Yet they're also like they're part of like BLM and Antifa and all these other like woke organizations as well. And it's just very interesting times, the hypocrisy within so many different groups. Yeah, Danielle Smith, she's rocking it.
Why tie the issue of getting a commitment for an oil pipeline to
For those who don't know, Danielle Smith is the premier of Alberta.
national unity?
Well, you have to understand just how damaged Alberta is by the fact that we didn't get pipelines built. If we had built Northern Gateway, if we'd built Keystone and we'd built Energy East, we'd have 2.5 million barrels more per day of production, which is $55 billion a year worth of GDP value, which is worth $17 billion to my government alone, and about an equal amount to the federal government. So this is not just an ideological argument. It's not just a minor disagreement. Oil is by far the most valuable export for Canada. Any of the projects that you will see on the ultimate list, I will tell you that a bitumen pipeline will be by far the greatest benefit to all of Canada. That's why we're going to continue to push for it, because it's a good project. It's good for our country. There's $9 trillion worth of value in discoverable and achievable reserves right now. And so why would you leave that in the ground? No other country in the world would, and we shouldn't either.
That's all the time we have for questions,
Okay.
guys. You have to
Thanks.
get on to the meeting.
Okay, I'll read this out. All right. Today's Auditor General report confirms what Canadians have feared. The GC strategy scandal goes even deeper. The audit found that in 82% of non-competitive contracts, departments couldn't prove that fees were fair or in line with market rates. Even worse, nearly half of examined contracts had little to no evidence that work was even delivered. If you are a taxpayer and you are not calling and being peaceful, but like calling this out, I don't know what to do. This is not just sloppy, it's a complete breakdown of accountability. Rules are being ignored, taxpayers are being ripped off, and no one is being held responsible. Canadians deserve better. We need a government that respects your hard-earned dollars and gets value for every cent. This was good. If you're not following this guy, follow him. The real bearded one.
First, they tried to tell us he's a Trump supporter and Republican, had an entirely different suspect lined up. Then they come out and tell us that's exactly what they're looking for. It's a statewide manhunt. Negating the fact that he was appointed by Tim Walz in Minnesota to preside over the board for the Workforce Development Department. And they automatically knew from jump that he was working alone and that he had a roommate, and they talked to his roommate.
Excuse me, I have a question for you.
How'd they know it was him while he's wearing a Stone Cold Steve Austin rubber mask, stole an unmarked car, posing as a police officer? But how could he steal an unmarked police car with state-of-the-art anti-theft devices so nobody could steal them? But GPS tracking devices are monitored from the hub so they know exactly where they're going. But that's not what I'm worried about. So did he hotwire it or did he use a key? Still waiting to hear about that one. But I digress. I want to know why nobody's talking about this.
We start with Chief Political Reporter Tom Hauser, and Tom has new information from multiple law enforcement sources about Belter's wife being detained today, Tom.
Yeah, I've been working the phones for several hours, as you know, trying to track this down while we were all covering the manhunt here in the Twin Cities this morning. So on the scene for 2 to 3 hours. We are also told by several of our sources the vehicle contained a weapon, ammunition, cash, and passports. Now, to our knowledge, no one in that group has been arrested, just detained for questioning. It's also unclear why they were stopped, whether they were being tracked, or if it was a random traffic stop.
What do you mean you don't know why she was stopped? Her husband just assassinated 2 people and tried to kill 2 more. And I have questions about the rubber mask and gloves. Was it actually him wearing that stuff? Because they were able to identify him anyway. Or was it his wife wearing that stuff? Yeah, they claim he worked alone and he had a roommate. Nobody mentioned anything about his wife. Nobody even knew he had a wife until now. Why was she running? Why'd she have all their passports in the car? So if he was working alone, why did his wife have all of their weapons and passports in her car? And why wasn't she arrested? And why did it take him 90 minutes to do this entire process when both sets of families who were targeted that morning live less than 5 miles apart from each other? If he didn't do it and he's innocent, why was she traveling with their passports? Why was she stopped with all the rest of his guns and ammunition? And why wasn't she arrested immediately? She was detained for questioning and no one's been arrested this time? The fuck? There goes that pesky little thing called narrative about him being a Trump supporter when he's a Democratic appointed leader in the Democratic Party in a Democratic state by a Democratic governor. Womp, womp. And the people he murdered and attempted to murder yesterday actually helped and support Trump policies. So the fuck are y'all talking about?
Damn, I'm good! Jordan fades back, swoosh, and that's the game! Nothing.
Mossad built secret drone base inside Iran, smuggled in commandos ahead of Israel strikes. Fact checked, true.
There's a new housing plan for the
CIA under investigation for interfering in Canada's recent election after Mike Myers exposed as CIA operative. I wanted to share that, but I wanted to elaborate on that. I don't know if the CIA is actually going to be investigating this, but I will say that during the Diddy trials, her name is MIA. She was an assistant to Sean Diddy Combs, and she, in her testimony, she was saying that she had organized or coordinated travel for Mike Myers, and he was and it was with people within the CIA, and it was a short period of time. But again, even with her short period of time, she did do coordination with Mike Myers, and he was involved with or surrounded himself with people that were in the CIA. And yeah, this is Hollywood. So Mike Myers possibly a sellout to Canadians and Americans, possibly, you know, and again, even that commercial that he did with Mark Carney, it was obviously a staged bit. And it just seems to be all coming out. In 2014, 43 students went missing in Mexico, where it was eventually discovered they were tortured to death. 43 students. Thomas Zarin was in charge of the investigation, but it soon became clear he was involved, and they're saying involved in the murders, so there's more to unpack. Like, he was definitely involved in covering it up, and so many other things that happened regarding, like, again, even the investigation process and trying to pin other people wasn't true, and et cetera, et cetera. So again, like, he needs to be investigated. However, he fled to Israel and is currently being protected for unknown reasons. And so he has been there since. I have verified that. And so there are people within the Israeli government, the Netanyahu types, that are harboring a literal criminal. Yeah. More breaking news.
So the reason.
These Karens, man.
So the reason that.
Shut up. It's so annoying. I'm exposing one professional protester for every 100 followers I get.
Do you feel like Republicans want to kill Jews?
Yes. They want to kill Jews. They want to kill black people. They want to kill brown.
Can I just ask, your credentials and what you're
Oh,
you're
my name is
representing?
Nate. I just have a YouTube channel.
Nate, so we don't know what side Nate
Let
is
him.
on.
Let him.
I don't care. Just so you know, I'm with a group that is just pointing out that there are some folks here who will take words and
Let
turn
them do it. I
into-
don't care.
Let's have a
but that
conversation.
they will-
I don't care.
I'm just saying,
I don't give a shit. Let them deport me.
No,
Who
no,
the
no.
fuck
But they-
cares about
but
these?
people will
These are
cut-
fucking.
Thank you.
These are cunts who have no fucking balls and they will troll. Let them troll. I don't care. I don't give a shit about
who are you
trolls.
with?
I'm giving you fair warning.
I know that. I don't give a shit.
Who is she
If
with?
we are
Why is she
scared,
not letting you talk?
I don't care about trolls like Charlie Kirk, Fuentes, and these. I don't give a shit.
Can I ask who are you?
See, I would have loved to have actually had this guy be able to talk, because he actually is saying, like, I mean, obviously he's being extreme and stuff like that, but like, but he is bringing up some good points, and this Karen is sabotaging it. So yet again, another time that there could be an open dialogue, back and forth. You get these Karens, men and women Karens that have no friggin' lives, that are sabotaging it. She's such a loser.
Who are you with? Can I ask who are you with?
Thank you.
Who are you with?
I'm with America.
No, but you asked me who am I with, so I'm asking you who are you with?
Well, you're acting like a reporter with a.
I am a reporter.
Yeah, okay.
You want to see my press credentials?
I want you to talk. I don't
Hey, here's my press credentials.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so who are you with?
I'm right now I'm representing myself, and I'm representing the folks at Rise and Resist who have been
Okay,
trained
so Rise
to
and
be
Resist.
marshals.
How much do they pay you to wear this vest?
Absolutely nothing.
Really? So I did some digging, and the woman trying to stop my interview is named Karen Shaw. She is a professional protester. I found her at almost 100 different protests. Let's look at her portfolio, shall we? Here's her outside Trump Tower saying TikTok.
And she is a Karen, by the way. That's why I was saying it, but it's spelled Karin. Still funny. Shaw.
Talk time's up. Here's her saying ban guns, not drag. Amazing. This is her telling us that lies have consequences. She is also very passionate about abortion. Even in the video right now, she's just wearing a hat that says abortion on it. Sometimes she gets less creative though and just holds a sign that says enough. Now here I found her working with a different professional protester that I've exposed. This is Stuart Waldman. He was there when they raised the Palestinian flag over City Hall in Rhode Island.
Everyone knows you.
Everyone knows me?
You are. They know what you do.
I know what you do as well, Stuart Waldman. You are on the board of riseandresist.org, the company that is paying people like Karen for a second job as a professional protester. And the donation link to give you money is just Act Blue, which is the fundraising platform for the Democrat Party. That's who you are, Stuart Waldman. Now back to Karen. I found her with another professional protester that I've exposed. This was back at the Tesla protest. This is just a few photos of this other professional protester out of maybe 50 that I found.
So the reason that
Can you shut up?
So the reason that
Yeah, that was interesting. All right, Moose on the loose yet again.
Would a grand bargain, though, Premier, also include you saying to the federal government, it's okay, C-69 can stay there if you're committing to helping me get more oil to market?
We got Danielle Smith jousting with Rosemary Barton on CBC. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today, Danielle Smith's bringing truth bombs. She's not holding back. She's a smart politician playing the game. She's coming with all the responses. Rosemary trying her best to pin her down with these questions. It's not happening. Let's jump into this. Starting this one off, we got Chrystia Freeland in Sweden at a Bilderberg conference. Bilderberg, the secret society, bunch of rich billionaires trying to decide how to run the world.
Anybody.
There she is right there. Chrystia Freeland doesn't realize there's media watching her. Just watch, she'll hide.
Chrystia! So Chrystia Freeland just popped out. She ducked back behind the shade there. Once she noticed all the cameras.
So once a car shows up, she ducks out. Quickly rushes over. There she goes.
That's Dan Dix from Press for Truth, who's at Bilderberg right now. And I donated to his campaign. I hope other people do as well.
To meet with the global elites. Not only are we paying for her to be there, we're going to pay the price for her being there. That is well said. Mark Carney doing what he does best, avoiding hard questions, meeting with world leaders, and playing prime minister. Here he is with Keir Starmer. The G7 is now on.
I wonder, as somebody who has a very unique vantage point, who has occupied a position that very few Canadians have, because I haven't had an opportunity to interview you since Donald Trump started threatening our sovereignty or levying these tariffs, like, given your experience in the top office in this country, like, what has gone through and leading this country, what has been going through your head as you watch that all unfold?
Well, he is a showman before he's a statesman. And we have to bear that in mind. There's some degree to that in everyone in public office. You can't ignore your media when you're conducting public policy now. But his inclination as a quite unique kind of showman is to make his own impact rather than find agreement. That's very difficult to deal with, but it's not impossible. One of the questions I think all of us are asking in the regarding the United States is, who else is there around him who might be a restraining influence?
That's a really good point. Who is close to Donald Trump that would be able to influence his decision? And what a good idea for Canadian politicians, premiers, prime ministers to go down and try to have meetings with those people. Is there anybody who's done that? I wonder, is there anyone who's done that? The obvious person that comes to mind is Danielle Smith. She did it before Trump became president. This was so smart. All the other premiers doing nothing. Danielle Smith was the only one to get a little bit of reprieve from those tariffs, reducing those tariffs on Alberta's oil. Here she is on CBC, Rosemary Barton's show. She's getting asked about whether David Eby will stop blocking Canada's prosperity in building a pipeline to the coast.
So BC, as you well know, and as I'm sure viewers know, have said no, they don't want another pipeline through their province. You have said that you think you can convince the Premier. What would you put on the table to try and convince him?
Well, it's Team Canada or it's not. And I think that this is one of the issues that we face for a lot of years, is that it's always been easier for Alberta to build north-south than to build east-west. And I think that that's not where Canadians are right now. With the threat of Donald Trump and the tariffs and the unreliability of the U.S. as a trading partner, I think that everyone is looking for ways that we can find projects where we can support each other. I would hope that at some point we'd have Premier Eby move to the same approach that we've seen with Wabkanu in Manitoba. I think he's got the highest popularity ratings of any premier.
That's true. Wabkanu is at the highest right now based on that latest poll. He's a smart politician. He knows what to say. He's a smooth talker. He's talking about pipelines now and opening up the Hudson's Bay. I'll believe it when I see it, having icebreakers go through there and open up a shipping lane and all that stuff. But he's talking about stuff. David Eby doesn't want prosperity in Canada. It's the easiest choice to get a pipeline built straight to Prince Rupert, start shipping that stuff over, start shipping over the oil and gas to Asia. We can start making a lot of money.
And he is also taking some challenging positions. I mean, he has got the first gold mine that has been approved in his province in 15 years. He has also openly said, as he develops out Churchill, that he includes in oil and gas pipelines as part of that economic corridor. So I think that that's the kind of spirit that Canadians are expecting, and I hope that we can get Premier Eby there as well.
This is a smart response because basically it's, as she pointed out, Team Canada. And if David Eby doesn't work with Canada, he's not Team Canada, then as she mentioned, then Alberta will just keep trading north-south down to America. So what is it, Eby? Is it Team Canada, or is Alberta going to just keep sending more oil to America? This really puts the guy in the hot seat, because if he doesn't work with Alberta, then it shows he doesn't care about Canadians. He's putting his ideological beliefs before the people.
Well, I'm glad you brought up that route from Alberta to the Port of Churchill, because that does seem potentially more likely. I don't know if it would be bitumen or it would be LNG or what would be there. But the other thing that
is absurd. Technically, yes, more likely because David Eby is a loser and he's blocking the pipeline. But getting a pipeline built to Prince Rupert is probably 100 times easier than opening up Hudson's Bay with icebreakers and creating a shipping lane up there. I don't know if they have some sort of magical method of putting pipelines under the ocean and going around to Newfoundland, or if it's just ship breakers and big ships going in there. I don't know, but surely it's easier to go to British Columbia at this point.
Hearing from Ottawa, whether it be Minister Hodgson or others, is that this isn't just about pipelines.
With all this talk of big energy projects, you think that would be top of the list for the Liberals? Nope, it's more money to Ukraine.
To begin Ukraine and assisting Ukraine in its time of need with military and economic aid since February 2022 has been one of our government's top priorities, and that will not change. That is the reason that we have invited President Zelensky to this summit.
At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if she said assisting Iran is the top priority. As Canada burns, yeah, we build water bombers. We don't buy them in this country. We're sending so much money to Ukraine. We don't have water bombers to protect ourselves.
So what else would be helpful to Alberta if you can't get there with a pipeline? And I understand that's your priority. What other things are you willing or interested in doing?
Well, I think we have to remember just how valuable a bitumen pipeline would be. We'd be talking about a million barrels a day in egress. And if you look at today's prices, that's about $20 billion a year in annual revenue year after year, going to markets that want our product, Japan, Korea, China, India. It makes a lot of sense for us to look at that. And so I don't think there's going to be any national project that is going to have that considerable amount of value.
How many times does Danielle Smith have to bring up the basic economics of how much money we'll make with a pipeline? Why are these politicians so hell-bent on making Canadians broke? Pierre Poilievre has been saying this stuff for years. Little side note here. So looks like they're officially launching a conservative podcast. I think this is a great idea.
There's an old saying about balanced budgets. It's like going to heaven. Everybody wants to do it, but nobody wants to do what it takes to get there. But yet you did get there. You went not only to a balanced budget, but to a pretty hefty surplus by this given the size of your community. How did you get through the political backlash that would have happened if you were cutting back on spending and putting the books in order?
This is Chief Billy Morin. He was just elected as Conservative candidate in Edmonton Northwest, and he's taken his community from deficit to surplus. This is the right kind of guy you want in government.
You know, when there's 2-year election cycles on a First Nation under the Indian Act, because we got that changed in my time. The political pressure is immense.
Right.
It is.
Because an election is always around the corner.
You're always in election mode. I knew a little bit of the situation, obviously inheriting the chief position. And our nation was in this continuous cycle of back and forth in old school Indian Act politics. And so the pressure was immense to balance that budget and make hard decisions. We had a bridge loan of an ungodly interest rate of, if I had to put a number on it, if I recall back then, 13, 14%. Wow. But through prudent action of the council and engagement of the nation and bringing them along the best we could, we brought that loan out for 1.2% roughly with First Nations Finance Authority when we got our books in order, when we created the nation's first finance law, when we created the nation's first administration law since the 1980s. But it's that boring stuff, that structural stuff that really, I would say, set us up for many generations to come.
And in reality, all success is actually born out of that grinding boredom. You know, no matter how spectacular the moment of success might be, it was not created in that moment. Well, you know, I like to say, for example, how long does it take? You know, I show people a clip of Mike Tyson throwing an uppercut. I say, how long did that uppercut took? And they go, I think it was about, I don't know, maybe 1/10 of a second. I said, no. That took about 10,000 hours of practicing the same thing over and over again. And the same is true of any craft, whether it's running a budget or leading a government or running a business. It's the relentless, boring, grinding practice that gets you that success.
It's interesting because you look at Mark Carney, his first actions in government just leading to increasing shareholder profits. That's all he knows. In this case, his own profits, his stock options in Brookfield. I'm sure he's got a bunch of stocks as well. In the case of Mike Tyson, you look at the guy even recently, he can't move all that well, but he can still throw those punches. He has that 10,000, 20,000, however many hours under his belt. He's still got those nasty hooks and uppercuts. It's all practice, repetition, and hard work.
What about the Port of Churchill, though? What could you get there, and how could you use that? Given that, as you've said, it seems easier to do. There's more consensus starting to be built around.
There's no way it's easier to get a pipeline to the Port of Churchill and getting ships in and out of there. There's no way. You can already get ships into Prince Rupert right now. There isn't a bunch of ice there.
I think it's both. I mean, I can make the same arguments going the other way as well. One of the advantages that we'd have of going to Churchill is that then, especially if you build icebreakers, you can go up and over and start feeding the East Coast refineries as well as get your product into Europe, which is desperate for it. They want to wean themselves off supply from Iran. They want to wean themselves off supply from Russia. And so if we can find a way to get both bitumen and natural gas to them, I think that is going to help with their security. Plus, it allows for us to look at ways to build interties in our transmission system so that we can bring hydro from Manitoba, nuclear from Saskatchewan, connect with British Columbia, and then be also able to decarbonize our power grid even further and provide reliability to each other.
Danielle Smith is trying to play this game with them because it's the only way that this works. She's doing a great job.
So Canada can fully implement nuclear energy at this point, but like, what if tensions with the U.S. or other countries escalates, and they start doing the same thing to us, like they're doing with Iran, right? Like looking at us as a threat, painting us as a threat, saying like, oh, we're like weeks away or months away of like a nuclear weapons, etc. This narrative is also being pushed and propagandized.
It's just so stupid that we can't just build a pipeline across Canada, over the land, straight to the East Coast, versus icebreakers and going through Hudson's Bay. Won't there be massive revolt destroying the ice where the polar bears come down? I mean, all the polar bears show up at Churchill. They rely on the ice to hunt from. They're going to start destroying all that ice. If icebreakers go through there, is that an environmental hazard towards the polar bears? They're already endangered. Where are the NDP activists? It's silly because the obvious choice is not to go through the Arctic. Just go across the land, build the pipeline, put some hydro lines over top of it, put a high-speed rail as well. This is not rocket science. We have buffoons running our country.
You and Minister Hodgson are using this phrase "grand bargain," and I wonder what that means for you. What is that? Making compromises? Is that being interested in dealing with emissions in a different way? What does that mean to you? That phrase?
Well, there's a couple things. I mean, the original Northern Gateway project was going to terminate in Kitimat, and I watched the video that showed that there's a lot to
that high, but again, I've also seen it dissipate when Ottawa addresses the legitimate concerns Alberta has. And I'm not kidding that the 9 demands are my short list. I know that there are other tensions that we have with the federal government, but a lot can get resolved when you have the means, because people have good paying jobs, and you also have the revenues to be able to address some of the social pressures.
She is correct. If those hostile policies reversed, separatist talk would chill. Yep. BC needs a premier like Danielle Smith. Yeah, you bet.
Would a grand bargain, though, Premier, also include you saying to the federal government, it's okay, C-69 can stay there if you're committing to helping me get more oil to market?
I like the idea of this 2-year time window. I mean, I think the fact that he wants to have a 2 years to yes timeframe is a demonstration that he knows the federal process is broken, because otherwise he'd say C-69 is perfectly fine and let's try to navigate through it. So what I hope would happen is that the projects that do make that national list and the 2-year fast track, that becomes a way for us to have a parallel track to talk about how we need to change and revise the other bills in order to improve investor confidence. I don't.
Danielle Smith is smart. She's remembering what Carney says, cornering him on it. So if he doesn't deliver, he looks like a fool.
Don't look at it as success if the federal government has to build every single project that would otherwise be built by the private sector, right, because the process is so cumbersome that no private sector investment wants to invest. That to me would be a failure.
We should have private companies building all these pipelines. They can make their money off it. They pay their taxes. Canada's coffers get a lot of money. If they get rich, we get rich. It's a win-win. That's how this should be operating. We shouldn't have the government building these pipelines because the government wastes money. The government is not efficient. The government knows nothing about running an efficient business. Can we stop sending money over to Democratic Republic of Congo and build pipelines? Why are we sending our money over to gender-sensitive this, that, and the other, World Bank, and $3.4 billion? No paper trail, out of sight, out of mind. Enough is enough. On this episode of Far Off Ripoff, we got this one here, community-based conservation for coastal marine biodiversity in Honduras. $13 million, $350,000, $13.3 million on, drumroll please, this project aims to improve biodiversity and key ecosystem health along Honduras, Atlantic, and Pacific coasts using nature-based solutions. Of course, it's nature-based solutions. It goes on to say here, improve gender-responsive and rights-based protection of natural coastal marine ecosystem using nature-based solutions with benefits especially for local women and girls and Indigenous people. This is the utmost DEI, ESG, ABC, DEFG sentence I've ever read in my life. So once again, are they actually spending money on this? Are they helping Honduras coastline? Either way, it doesn't matter. We have people sleeping in tents. We don't have enough money for health care. We don't have enough doctors. We don't have enough nurses. We're missing a whole bunch of stuff in our country. Why
you have veterans, disabled veterans, that actually do need assistance for the rest of their lives. And it's deserved, by the way. They were of service. They sacrificed literally everything, including their goddamn limbs for Canada and their lives, obviously, was what I'm saying as well. But they're asking for too much. They're asking for too much. Basic human decency services so they can have access to, like, for mobility, right? So there's even a woman. She was, I want to say like the para Invictus Games or anything. Anyway, she was an athlete. Like after being disabled, being of service, she was doing like athletic stuff, and she needed to have like just more mobility within her apartment, and declined years and years trying to get this basic services just to get in and out of her house, down her stairs, wheelchair bound, etc. And lifts like within her house, and no, asking for too much. And then we have billions of dollars going into woke DEI, ESG, CBDC, Green Fund bullshit. This stuff that's not actually making any impacts on the ground. And in fact, it's actually causing more division within these countries as well. And then a lot of kickbacks and money laundering and skimming off the top and stuff like that as well that's going on with this. Not helping. We have a lot of homeless people, record-breaking food bank usage, etc. And these people are not the ones, these people in the House of Commons, are not the ones that are volunteering at the Ottawa Mission or Shepherds of Good Hope or any of these other homeless shelters within Ottawa. No idea what's going on.
Would we send a single dollar, let alone $13.3 million to help Honduras ecosystem on the Pacific and Atlantic side? We shouldn't be spending $1 on this. Once again, is this getting stuffed into someone's pocket? Or are the Liberals just giving our money to Honduras out of the generosity of their heart?
So I think part of his job is to create an investment climate that tells the investor community, welcome back to Canada, because it hasn't done that for the last 10 years. We've lost, we estimate, somewhere in the order of $500 billion worth of investment. We want to bring some of that back, and it's going to require law changes to make it happen.
I think we've already lost a lot of these businesses. As soon as Carney won, they all went over to America or somewhere else to build their new pipelines, to build their businesses, because Canada sucks right now. It sucks because of the Liberals. The Liberals do not care about prosperity. They care about virtue signaling and sending our money over other parts of the world that can't be audited. Where's Justin Trudeau right now? Is he collecting briefcases in Ghana and Rwanda? Where is he? What's he up to? I mean, this is his last day walking out. This looks like a little kid who got away with something that he shouldn't have got away with. And this Liberal Party has duped the population again into voting for them. Bless Danielle Smith for trying hard to bring some prosperity. She might actually do it. I have some faith. She might actually.
And on the left, people are saying Carney just got in. It's only been a few months. No, he hasn't. Like he was a major financial advisor, economic advisor during 2021. Complete shit show. And he's been, anyways, like he's been within the government for years, and in positions where there's actually been a lot more harm than good for Canadians, especially. Actually, no, all Canadians. I was going to say the middle class being hollowed out, stuff like that too. But no, we also have like record-breaking homelessness. The people are going to be defaulting on their mortgages, and like the quality of life has gone through the roof. That was Mark Carney, and I called for him to be in jail in 2021, and I shared the receipts on that as well. So no, he's not new in 2021. I was talking about this, and other people were as well. Not a lot of people, because they weren't tracking things like they should be. But it's not their jobs. Right? Like I would argue that if you're someone that works in the civilian sector or whatever you want to call it, and not within government, like why would you track this stuff? It's all annoying and frustrating and soul sucking.
To get something done, even working with these buffoons.
But that didn't sound like you would be unwilling to accept the fact that some of the things that are in place might stay in place, even if it means that other projects get approved. Because certainly Minister Hodgson seems to suggest that C-69 is staying, but that doesn't mean that they will be inflexible in terms of approving things.
Let's be practical. The federal government has jurisdiction for linear projects that go cross-border, that whether it's pipeline or whether it's transmission lines. Yeah. But the question is, do you need to do an intersectionality analysis of every single bill? Like there's measures that they've put into the bill that are not technical, that are ideological, and that don't really have any measurables around them and create confusion. So that's part of the reason why C-69 needs to be substantially revised. They also have a large portion of it struck down because they don't have the right to micromanage the projects that are within a jurisdiction, intra-provincial. And so they had a massive overreach on that front. So I think it needs to be substantially revised, and I hope that we're able to get there over the next couple.
I think that it's actually veterans are treated worse in the U.S. than in Canada. And from stories that I've heard from, like, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, oh my God, just awful stories. And thousands of people, by the way, these are not isolated, just to, like, fuel fires and things like that, intentions, stuff like that. Absolutely appalling. And in 2022, it was such a rough period for me. It was rough. It was dark times. I'm not going to lie. I was sharing a lot of information that people on all sides didn't like. So I was getting literally targeted and attacked, swatted, swarmed, like so much shit because of what I was sharing. Again, it was like left and right. So it was very interesting times. It still is. I'm not liked by the majority of people. That's probably also why I don't get a lot of viewers, because I would prefer to share the truth or what I believe to be facts, and not allow me, like myself, to get swayed by what people are saying within like certain positions, right? I'm not just blindly following people, whether I voted for them or not, right? And I'll address concerns in these situations as well. So again, there's a lack of popularity because of that. And I was gonna fucking say something, I missed my point. Oh yeah, so 2022, I didn't know if I was gonna live or die. I literally thought, like having heart palpitations and stuff like that. And but I donated a lot of money, and I don't like. It's not a brag or anything like that, but it was through the Wilderness Wild Woods Wilderness Retreat, and there are veteran military and veteran law enforcement. In fact, both people did both jobs. Oh no, actually no, Nate did. I believe he was military. Anyways, Gwen, she was law enforcement and a veteran and a badass. She was on Discovery Channel, like primitive survivalist, like friggin' warrior, amazing human being. But anyway, so I donated so that they could build up an area in Denali, Alaska, a wilderness retreat for veterans and first responder types to have a place to go and heal, like retreats and stuff like that. And because people that were not getting supported, completely outcast in society, no one cared about them or anything like that, and to like leave areas and go into a wilderness retreat or wilderness area and have shelter built and stuff like that, and food and resources. It was very important, especially in the U.S. So I donated to Americans for that, because we do have a lot more services in place in Canada still. And but again, I've donated a lot of money as well to Wounded Warriors Canada and True Patriot Love Foundation and so many other organizations for these people as well, because like the help from within government, it's there, but it could be better. But again, I'm not complaining, because again, we have more privileges and entitlements and looked after more than so many other countries, right? So like, I don't want to dismiss it, but I will say that these ideologically motivated funds, billions of dollars, could be directed towards Canadians, especially Canadians that have been of service in so many different capacities. Again, not just military and law enforcement. I've talked about nurses, doctors, medics, paramedics, etc.
Couple of years, because 2 years to yes is pretty ambitious. I think the industry would like to see it faster than that, but we've got to keep up with the Americans, and they're changing their regulatory processes to be that fast as well. And if we don't keep up, we're going to lose this window of investment.
Isn't that the truth there? Danielle Smith with the truth bombs. If we don't get this going, Alaska LNG, America is not messing around. Are we going to let them get all the big contracts? I mean, we had that huge $1 trillion contract that Trump signed with Japan. That could have been us. That should have been us. This one here, Japanese energy giant JERA to boost LNG imports from USA. Japan's largest power generation company said Thursday would ramp up imports of liquefied natural gas from the United States. This commitment will bring almost $250 billion.
Oh yeah, and these paid protesters that are paid for by the government, these activists, like a lot of them are on the left, but on the right as well. There's also videos out there of people as part of these protests, masks and everything, because they're fucking cowards, beating up veterans on the streets, and people recording this. So like, well done, people. Like, yeah, this is exactly what your money's going towards.
Dollars to our nation's economy and support 50,000 American jobs. That could have been Canada. Justin Trudeau said there was no business case. Here's the business case. We're losing now because of the Liberals. Again, it goes on to say here in February, Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ibishi promised Trump that yearly Japanese investment would increase to $1 trillion. Why are we not winning? Why are we not choosing to win in our country? We have LNG. We're not one of these countries that doesn't have it. With the G7 summit,
because Mark Carney will not become a multimillionaire billionaire without his climate scam ESG woke diversity budget, right? if there's oil that's produced within Canada, the second largest country in the world, possibly, then again, it's where his shares and stocks are and where his investments are and his friends and family, they will be the ones that lose. And he sucks, and I hope he gets fired. I hope there's some kind of a non-confidence vote. I've been saying this for years. It's never going to happen. It's just so frustrating that it's just
happening now in Alberta. We've got former Prime Minister Joe Clark here being asked what we should expect from the summit.
Heading into the summit, what do you view the point of it as? And I ask not, not with any callousness at all, but there's not going to be a communique. We already know that, for example. So we won't necessarily know, what are the shared priorities of these allies emerging from this meeting. And there's good reason for it. The last time Donald Trump attended one of these in Charlevoix, there was a ton of very public disagreement over the substance of that communique.
On really difficult questions. And part of that is because at the end of the day, the discussions that will be decisive are among people who are themselves heads of government. Of course, we all rely heavily on our public servants, but in a situation on issues like this, the final decision has to come from the top. Now,
climate change, we actually just had a chart come out recently showing the average temperatures over the last 45 years. So this is the average. What we're looking at here is this red line. Our temperatures are within average of the last 45 years.
You will see leaders and you will have some access to them. Energy security is on the agenda. And I wonder whether you have any goals yourself for trying to convince some of these world leaders, the G7 leaders or the other people invited, that Alberta needs to be sort of front and center to some of the solutions that those countries might be looking for.
Well, I am international and intergovernmental affairs minister as well. And so I've been doing a lot of that work over the last 2.5 years. I've traveled to Japan and Korea. I've spent a lot of time in the United States. I've met with every ambassador who's come through Alberta. And I've made that exact case is we're here and we're here to help. Whether it's for propane, which Japan receives 15% of, whether it's our bitumen exports out of Trans Mountain Pipeline, half of it is now going to destinations like China and Korea, or whether it's LNG, which we know that Europe needs so desperately and are already getting Canadian LNG out of the Gulf Coast. And so if we can do more of that, then we want to be the answer. But it does require us to be serious about increasing production as well. So we have to have those conversations together.
Are you hoping to talk to the president? Would that be someone that you would, given that you know him a little bit, would you hope to speak with him?
She got a brief opportunity today as Donald Trump arriving for the G7 summit.
I do. I mean, I put in what the host jurisdiction does have an opportunity to ask for a bilateral with one of the world leaders. So I would like to meet with, if I can, with the U.S. president, with the Prime Minister of Australia, with Japan as well. I think that those three nations are. I think there's a lot of collaboration that we can do. So I think what the spirit that we're in right now is I think we want to improve our relationship with the U.S., yes, but we want to trade more with each other as provincial jurisdictions, and we want to work together on projects that allow all of us to get our products to international markets. So I think it's a huge opportunity to make that case on all fronts.
Okay.
Danielle Smith anchoring Canada right now, trying to bring some prosperity. I will give a little bit of credit to Wab Kinew because he has opened up with the mining, the gold mine, at least talking about oil to the Hudson's Bay. That puts pressure on David Eby and Mark Carney. Suddenly, since there's multiple premiers saying, hey, we need to do this, if Mark Carney says no, then he looks like he doesn't care about Canada. And he's nebulously saying that he's in favor of it if there's buy-in from everyone else. So he's placing the blame on David Eby. So David Eby is going to get tossed out of power here if he doesn't agree to work with Canada, if he puts his ideology above prosperity of Canada. And maybe that's Mark Carney's.
He has. To me, again, what does my point matter even? But I think that for the front runner for the Conservative Party, for the leadership, is Danielle Smith. And I don't even think it's close. And just very interesting times. Unless Pierre Poilievre, actually listens to people within his party, I'm talking about us, the voters, then I don't see how there's going to be success within the Conservative Party. Doug Ford, there's just too many people that have failed us over the years that are still in positions of authority and leadership, and they're absolutely not helping. There was one other video I wanted to share. Here we go. Dan Dix, Press for Truth. The final day has arrived at Bilderberg 2025 with Press for Truth, posted 18 hours ago. Will it play? I'm not going to play the whole thing, obviously.
This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth. It is the final day here at the 71st Annual Bilderberg Conference in Stockholm, Sweden. The delegates of the conference are now about to make their getaway. There's a number of cars here that are going to be transporting them to the airport any minute now. Of course, we're going to be here documenting all of the faces so as to get any discrepancies in the participants list. And today I'd also like to interview some of these journalists who came out to cover Bilderberg, because God knows there's not a whole heck of a lot of them these days, but these guys have been doing the good work, so we'll be speaking to them today as well, guys. So stay tuned for all that. Last night, after their boat ride to some fancy dinner, they came back on 3 large buses in a huge police entourage motorcade, and I managed to get a pretty good shot of all of them flowing out of the buses and back into the hotel. So that's a nice little clip that I can analyze later to see if we have any discrepancies in the participants list. We've got this table here, security escorts taking them to their cars. Just saw Stacey Abrams hop into that car. Of course, the police presence is large as usual, and I gotta say, the Swiss and police in Sweden have been very nice. Some of the nicest I've had to deal with. Making their getaway. There's Larry Summers, American economist and deeply involved with OpenAI. Confronted him at an airport once. He didn't like that. I showed you that in my last video. He's looking a little ragged these days, but that's what happens when you engage in this kind of stuff. Miss Anderson on her way out of here. Christia! So Christia Freeland just popped out. She ducked back behind the shade there once she noticed all the cameras. And here is Christia Freeland making her getaway. There she is. She just got into that car there. Absolute proof Christia Freeland was here. If anybody wants to argue that, I have the proof. I doubt it'll be on her official itinerary. We'll see. This is Oscar Stenstrom. He has pretty much been responsible for organizing this year's meeting. In fact, it was after seeing him at last year's meeting and knowing that he works for Jacob Wallenberg, which has made us what made us realize that the next meeting was going to be here in Stockholm. That was a dead giveaway, and sure enough, we were correct. Had a fantastic team of journalists covering it. I, on the other hand, am trying to stay a little bit in the shade, and I have a good shot from over here as well. It's a hot one today. There's Marie-José Kravitz and her husband. He is believe he's the co-chair of the steering committee, or Marie-Jose Kravitz, the lady in black there, is the co-chair of the steering committee. These are the ones who decide who to invite, who to potentially recruit into the inner circle of the inner circle. Mr. and Mrs. Kravitz making their getaway after yet another Bilderberg. That's Secretary General of NATO right there, Mark Rutte. We've got the Secretary General of NATO meeting with prime ministers and kings and other military men and extremely influential people off the record. That's a grave concern, especially considering what's happening in the world with Russia, Ukraine, Israel, and Iran.
Just trying to see who's there. I do have it on 1.25 speed. So these no kings protests. Oh my God, it was happening in Canada too, and also in the UK where they have a king right now, King Charles. And so within the UK when they were doing the no kings, they were like, but to clarify, we're not talking about our king. Make it make sense. Make it make sense.
I do believe this guy is a member of the press who, of course, was on the inside. Think he's going to report on it? That looks like Teal's security guard. It's very possible Teal may be coming out soon. Let's see. Yeah. That's Mr. Jacob Wallenberg, the host of this year's event, the Swedish billionaire who's pretty much running the show around here for his family for the last 100 years. There he goes. That sure does look like Peter Thiel's bodyguard. There's the Minister of Finance for Finland, who I spoke with earlier. Interesting. Still coming out, but the barriers are coming down. Hey, Matthias. Matthias. Peter Thiel, my clip of you is going viral because the people know what you're doing, pal.
Satan, evil, demon, pedophile.
I think someone just called him a pedophile.
Well, guys, that was Peter Thiel.
Satan, evil, demon, pedophile.
Satan, he's a demon pedophile, I think is what she said.
Well, guys, that was Peter Thiel making his getaway. I had a lot of things I wanted to say to him. The fact that the people clearly want him confronted. You know, that clip is going viral. And I wanted to say, you've been weighed in the balances and found wanting. Your empire will be divided. But unfortunately, I got a little distracted by somebody yelling Satan at him. But honestly, that's quite understandable as well. So there you have it, Peter Thiel making his getaway. All right, guys, we're here now with my friend Frederico, who has been covering the Bilderberg group for a couple of years now, in person, that is. We first covered it together in Portugal, and then last year we were in Spain together. Now you're here with me once again in Sweden. So, Frederico, well, maybe you could start us off by telling us what made it so important for you to come all the way here to Sweden to cover Bilderberg. Why did you do it?
Well, actually, the thing is that when we first met there in Lisbon, then we knew next year would be, well, we didn't know it quite exactly, but Madrid is 600 kilometers from Lisbon, so that's why we met in Lisbon. And then this year, when we start making our investigations, I found out that Stockholm would be the place, and it was confirmed. So it is very important for me to be also in Bilderberg. I've written some books about it, and I did a great research. The Portuguese have been there almost since the beginning, since 1956. That is 2 years after the foundation. We were still a dictatorship. We have a democracy, a young democracy, and our young democracy has been also under the Bilderberg command. Portugal has been member of NATO, also founding member of NATO in 1949, and still was a dictatorship. So it's very important for a Portuguese journalist to be where other Portuguese journalists don't go. If there would be more Portuguese journalists here, I would not be here. So therefore, I'm probably the only one in Portugal that speaks about Bilderberg.
And how do you compare this year's meeting to the last few? I remember in Spain and Portugal, the cops were a little bit heavy-handed, but they seem to be a little nicer here in Sweden. What else have you noticed about covering Bilderberg at Sweden?
I was very impressed positively because we had it was a relaxed place here. Lisbon was also relaxed, but still tight security. Spain was much more tired. We didn't have too many chances of talking with some of the members and getting good pictures to testify that they were really present, which is very important. It's not the fact that you are able just to speak with them or make the confrontation, but it's the fact that you are able to see that it exists. They are here. They give their face. And here in Stockholm,
you've got all of these protests all over the world, like especially the US right now, protesting things that, again, it's part of the steering committee. That's literally where Dan Dix is right now in this guy. And like crickets almost, right? Like there's like one or two people like representing like a few countries, like where people are actually tracking what's going on and trying to share this information and calling out and exposing people like Peter Thiel and Chrystia Freeland and the Mark Carney types, again, these Bilderberg types, these steering committee types. And they would never, and again, it's not going to work anyways, but like these people that are protesting in these areas, like if you want to actually impact change, it would be protesting peacefully and respectfully, people that attend Bilderberg and call out what they have done in the past and what they're doing and what their agenda is, all of that stuff. But no, absolutely not. This is why you know this is not grassroots, these protests. And it is what it is. And it's unfortunate that like these people are the ones like Dan Dix, Press for Truth, and Moose on the Loose. They're not getting as viral as so many other social media influencers that, you know, are talking about friggin' toast, avocado toast, or friggin' this is my day 100 as a woman. Oh, I'm so pretty and I feel so. Anyway, millions of views.
It was very nice. I think we covered almost all of them, especially when they went to the boat here in front of this beautiful canal with the Royal Palace on the other side and the Wallenberg mansion, sort of saying, the Palace of Wallenberg here. And as we ride in a taxi, and last night someone said he owns Sweden. So we were here in the place which is owned by the Swedish Wallenberg with all the persons that he probably owns.
You know, I was surprised to see a protest of about 300 to 400 people show up. What do you think about that? Isn't that kind of remarkable for Sweden?
Yeah. It's I don't know exactly what's the length of other protests in Sweden. My first meeting in Bilderberg was in 2010 in Sitges in Barcelona. There was a huge protest there, but there was also with other issues which were not quite present in the Bilderberg. So people were more there for other things. But this moment, people were here really for Bilderberg. They knew exactly why they were here. And 300 persons is amazing because they say sometimes you get 10 or 13, now you got 300. Well, that's good. People are waking up, and the Swedish people that pass by asking us, making questions. When the moment we talk with them, we explain what is happening here, they got very worried. And then it was little by little, that's how you do. You know, that's why you need journalism. And people say, what is going on here? I say, you don't know what's going on here? No. That's why the journalists doing a very good job. That's why you're not supposed to know. But yes, we are doing the best job that others are not doing. That's why we are explaining one by one to everyone that asks us what is going on here.
And that's why these guys cower and run like little cockroaches that just had the light turned on. I mean, Peter Thiel, you know, just recently made his getaway. Who else of notable names do you think are here who people should know about?
Well, the responsible of Pfizer, for instance, he met with, I'm sadly to say, as a Portuguese, he met with a very important person, international, which is, by the way, Portuguese also. His name is Durão Barroso, and is the president of Gavi, which is the World Alliance for Vaccination. And when you start having persons like that discussing with the General Secretary of NATO, then, and especially one of the issues was depopulation. We had the chance to talk with Gideon Rachman, he's a journalist from Financial Times, and he was answering to us as a journalist. He said, I asked him, what about depopulation in the agenda? And he says, oh, we are just seeing which country has more children, which country has less children. I say, you can go to internet to see that. You can Google that. What is going on here exactly? It's so important for you to discuss.
And why are you calling it depopulation? Why are you calling it that? Why are you calling it depopulation if you're looking at fertility and birth rates of like comparing countries? And he's right. Like I've shared videos on that as well. And
us to have more babies or less babies? Are we
more death or less?
Or more death or less death?
At the same time.
More vaccines or less vaccines? So more war or less war? So that's the questions that now must be asked by the others journalists who are not here, but we say we are the witness. They were here at the same time, at the same moment, in the same powwow, in the same meeting points, in the same summits, whatever you want to call it. It's not secretive, it's discreet, because the list is present. Our job is to show the world it is happening, and that's what we have to thank you. The world must be thankful for you, and for me also. But I am thankful for meeting you, because I've seen your job for the years and years, and it is a privilege to be next to you in this mission.
Dan is an OG. Like, he has been at this for years, and let me tell you, this is soul crushing stuff, and there's a lot of work that's put into it, and not money. And if there's money, it's not a lot of money. And then again, like, Dan is putting this money towards what he's doing, right? So like, I'm sure that this wasn't cheap. I'm sure it was very expensive. And my God, he's a hero. Like, if someone like that, like I feel like they should get like some kind of like a medal. Like, I don't know.
Well, I must say, I hope to see you at the next year's meeting. I don't know if it will be in Canada or North America, perhaps, Austria, Finland.
Europe, or here in this place of Europe, more maybe Finland or Poland, who knows, other places, we will never know. But if we get the chance, there's the one over that side, Mister. Don't worry. Okay, we have it on camera. So there will be a chance wherever, if we get time, because this is made with our own money in cases. You survive with donations. I also survive with some jobs that I have to do by the side, also along with the journalist jobs that I do. And we put all the money in it. And it's fun because I was talking with the policeman, and he says, I was identifying myself as a journalist, of course, and he says, who's paying this? So, man, what do you have to do with paying me? This is my job, okay? I don't ask you who's paying you. You are being paid by the state. You are protecting them. But it's funny because they are so worried who's paying this. You are paying. The people is paying to us, and we have a face. We show our face. We show our voice. We say what.
In law enforcement's defense, when they're asking journalists or reporters like who is paying them, there is legitimate, probably concern in the back of their heads. Who just like the paid protesters, like who is paying you? Who's funding this? Like, are you part of like the Soros crew? Like these, the Open Society, like these foundations, these radical activist groups that are working within the government, that are getting awarded contracts from the government with no oversight, and they're spreading a lot of misinformation and fueling division, right? So like, I understand why a cop would ask that, but again, they're not coming from that background or that lived experience, and so, but again, they're calling it all out. So again, like, I'm just giving a different perspective, possibly that could have been the thought process of the law enforcement officer.
Do we think?
Because that's exactly what I would think. Every time I look at protests or people that have like the signs up and all of that stuff, I'm like, who is paying you for that?
You can go and you can see in the internet, our job, and you are the ones who pay us.
Yeah, well said. And like I said, it's ridiculous a question here, because the more important question should be, why are you covering this? Why isn't the media covering this? And a lot of the police officers don't even understand what they're protecting here, right?
And I think it's also interesting that the most important persons in the world, there's a boat living out the canal. The most important persons in the world, they know us because we are the ones who take a picture. We are the ones who shout to them to say something. Peter Thiel knows who you are. So you are the most important journalist because you are the one that has the most important person of the world not giving you the answer. And it's just giving the answer to those journalists that are his master's voice. Yeah. And journalism is not his master's voice.
Well, I want to thank you again for making the trek all the way out here from Portugal to Sweden. Is there anywhere people should go online if they want to continue to hear more from you? There might be some people who speak Portuguese.
I'm on X, Frederico Duarte 27. You already got me tagged there, and also Facebook, so I can answer to anyone that sends me. Okay, I know I'm on those things. I also have my other contacts, but those are more private ones, of course. But the public ones are the normal public ones. You see, yeah.
Perfect. Well, I want to strongly encourage people to certainly check that out. I will include links in the description because, guys like myself and Frederico are few and far between these days, and that certainly needs to change. Come join us, guys. So, yeah, Frederico, thanks once again for taking the time to be.
Thank you very much. You.
All right, guys, we're here now with Josh Friedman. Josh has been covering Bilderberg for many, many years, just like me. We've covered a whole bunch of them together. So I guess we can start with, why did you think it was so important to come all the way out here to Sweden this year to cover Bilderberg?
Well, there's so many storylines, but if we go back to last year, after the 2024 conference, it was pretty notable who ended up rising to high office who had attended Bilderberg. So in your case, it didn't happen right away after the conference, but Mark Carney, who was a Bilderberg steering committee member, became Prime Minister of Canada, and then became the elected Prime
Can't believe
Minister
this.
of Canada, and that was not the only case. There were instances like Kaja Kallas was Estonian Prime Minister last year. She went on to become the EU foreign policy chief, and more notably, who she was spotted having coffee with in Madrid last year. Then Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte is now the head of NATO. So there are very close ties between Bilderberg and NATO. Some people like to refer to Bilderberg as an informal NATO summit. And that might be very fitting this year, being that Sweden is just over a year removed from formally joining NATO. And there are a lot of connections between both Sweden and Finland's accession to NATO over the past couple years and Bilderberg. Even some meetings have taken place, formal or informal, related to that during the accession process and after. So everything having to do with NATO and the general climate of the world, which changed as we were here. It didn't factor into my decision to come this year, but the Israel-Iran war, hot war, broke out after the meeting already started. But everything related to geopolitics and the military sphere and NATO certainly factors into why I'm interested in this event.
Yeah, what a great reason to come. I mean, when you got guys like Peter Thiel, who's, co-founded Palantir with Alex Karp, inside this building at the time that, this Israel-Iran war is happening is pretty wild. It looks like he left at one point, but maybe came back. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there was a lot of rumor and speculation on the outside, but that does happen from time to time. A couple years ago in Lisbon, some of us on the outside had thought that Eric Schmidt had left the conference. Maybe he did briefly, but then he came back. But with Thiel and Karp, at least on the outside, it's a little more noticeable because they have, let's just say, a stronger security presence on the outside than other participants. And yeah, some might wonder or speculate that after the hot war between Israel and Iran broke out, could that mean that Karp and Thiel need to rush to a meeting in another country, potentially? Do they need to go to a more secure location? I don't know, but there was a lot of buzz and speculation about that on the outside of the meeting.
You've been harassed. You've had police barge into your, room before, being detained multiple times. What was the experience like for you this time in Sweden? For me, honestly, the police seemed very, very friendly, pretty much with just about every encounter I've had. How about you?
I'd say, at least from our perspective on the outside, our vantage point, the event was run very professionally. Compared to last year, it was night and day difference. The Spanish policing of Bilderberg last year in Madrid was quite aggressive. That was not at all the case with Swedish policing. Granted, I was warned a few times, and as I'm interviewing or confronting participants on the outside, and it's understandable. I had a few conversations with the police trying to strike that balance between my freedom as a journalist to question public figures, not just walk around in public with a camera, but question public figures walking around in public. And at what point might I be invading their privacy in accordance with Swedish or European law? I understand the perspective of the Swedish police. At no point did they stop me from doing my job, but I was warned a few times. And after a couple warnings, I tried to give a little more distance. But it was really remarkable how we could stand practically right here where we're standing, which is just across this narrow street from the entrance to the hotel, and film participants without having a gate shut in our face or without having a bunch of green fencing that we can't really see through. And the participants would walk up to us on the exterior of the enclosed area and go for walks, and everything just seemed more cordial, more relaxed, more professional, dare I say, this year compared to last year. In some cases in the past, like I was there in Germany and Dresden, where the police were very aggressive with you. It was not at all the case this year, though. Yes, there were some warnings that I was given.
Speaking of organized, I got to say, I was pretty surprised and impressed to see that 300 to 400 protesters showed up for an anti-Bilderberg protest in Sweden. Like, honestly, I was kind of shocked by that. What are your thoughts on just the protest movement here in Sweden and the amount of people who are apparently aware of Bilderberg?
I was not expecting that at all in terms of the protest. I was aware ahead of time that there was going to be some protest. There would be some locals here on the outside or people from elsewhere in Sweden. But I was not there, so kudos to you. You got to deliver the keynote address, I believe. I watched it. Congratulations on your speech and your appearance there. But I was not expecting that at all. If I had to wager a bet beforehand, I would have guessed that there were like 20, maybe 20 people would show up. That was not all the case. So I was very impressed. And actually that extends beyond the protests. There were Swedish mainstream press here at the beginning and Swedish alternative media and photographers here for almost the duration of the event. And on some evenings, they would stay till the very end in order to maybe on the first night photograph Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson, who was here. But on other days or other evenings, when at least the sitting Swedish Prime Minister was not here, I'd still see them. So I was very impressed by the atmosphere here on the outside among members of the Swedish press and particularly Swedish alternative media. And yeah, you were there for that big protest.
Now, I know you can't predict the future or anything like that, but should this take place in North America, Europe, obviously one of the two next year, where do you think some of the potentials are? And would you be willing to come to Canada if it's going to be there?
I will definitely come to Canada if it's there. That's a possibility. Bilderberg has at times somewhat informally followed the rotation of every 4 years in North America. And it's been several rotations now since there's been an event in Canada. So Washington, D.C. or the D.C. area is definitely a possibility for next year. I guess Canada.
I will say the 2010 G20 summit or whatever it was that happened in Toronto, that there was people's lives were ruined during that period of time because, again, of people that were disruptors, agitators, people that were crisis actors, role players, part of these radical activist groups, professional groups that are funded by people within the government that are corrupted. And they were even canalizing people in areas just to arrest them. They were like snatch and grabs. They were putting people in areas like not even in precincts and in like interrogating them. It was very intimidating and overwhelming for a lot of people. And then their names on lists, people charged, people, etc. And then more severe charges. And again, like there was use of force, excessive use of force. And again, even with the monopolizing the media as well. And Bill Blair was the chief of police in Toronto at that time. So like during the Freedom Convoy time, he was the Minister of National Defense. I was very worried about that again, the same thing would happen at a larger scale than what happened in Toronto. And so people like myself and Helen Bruce and countless others were trying to make this peaceful as possible. And Tamara Leach and Chris Babar and Jeremy McKenzie and so many others were being vocal and advocating for this to be peaceful, because we knew that like had we not interjected, then the people that were part of the steering committees, again, they're like the agenda that they wanted to push would have been achieved. And that was the concern, especially that first weekend, trying to paint people as right-wing white supremacist types, Nazi types, etc., when that was not the case for the. And again, if you want to talk about extremists, there was radical extremists on the left and right side. People that are these international professional protester types, I think they're freaking losers, respectfully, that again were agitators, instigators. January 6th, I've covered that probably more than anyone. And look at my older Rumble videos and very thorough footage from on the ground, which showed a lot of people that were role players and crisis actors that were civilian, that were people that unfortunately that were veteran types, which, you know, I fucking hate that they exploit these people. And then people within the government as well, like even breaking glass, bringing people in, fake arrests, like just putting on the MAGA, like what they thought what a MAGA person would look like. And I saw that as well during the Freedom Convoy, even traveling to Ottawa, right? So even when I was doing, I was giving food and water and supplies and stuff like that to people that were going to different checkpoints on their way to Ottawa, I was looking for people like that, these actors, and taking footage of it, and I was giving it to law enforcement. I was telling on these people. I don't care, right? Because again, this is for the for the security of Canada. And again, just people that were being suspicious, right? And then having conversations with them if the opportunity came up, and then see if they were actually grassroots, actually good people like Tamara Leach that were there for the right reasons, and or were these civilians or people coming in from the U.S. or other countries, or even Canadians that are just again friggin' brain dead, respectfully speaking, that are again pushing an agenda, planting themselves in covertly, and not part of the team. And even with that, the Emergency Act was declared. People's lives were ruined. People went to jail. Tamara went to fucking jail. Bank accounts frozen. People that were not getting approved for mortgages, or even their insurance companies dropping them randomly, no reasons why. Very interesting. And then people have police records. And then when you have records and things like that, there's a lot of things you cannot do in society anymore, right? So like if you can't even get approved for a mortgage, you got to look at that. If you can't get approved for, for insurance, you got to look at that. If you have a record, you've got to look at that. You may never be able to work in a government job. And these are still necessary, but again, not the overreach we're seeing. And so just be cautious of this stuff, right? So not only do you have the possibility of even just being an innocent, peaceful bystander, having your life ruined, or getting targeted, or being again caught in the crossfires of what's going on, and or worse. And so I think the best thing to do is just become more educated, more informed, and try to not push yourself or tunnel yourself into these echo chambers where you're reinforcing your own biases.
There's a possibility. There's some rumbling and speculation on the outside that it might be elsewhere in the Nordics, potentially Finland, because Sweden has joined NATO and Finland has joined NATO, and there have been some interesting participants who have been coming. That's not necessarily a giveaway, although it arguably was with Oscar Stenström, who technically is not a participant, but we've now seen him a few years running. Stenström turned out to be an organizer for this year's event, as he now works for the Wallenberg family. I can't say, though, that there's a clear giveaway that it's going to be in any one of these countries next year. I think we have to do some digging. Maybe we can cultivate some sources. So too early to say, but there's been some buzz and speculation about it possibly being in a Nordic country next year. And it would very much make sense if it were to return to North America.
Well, we're going to stay on top of that and obviously, be there as soon as we figure out where it is. So I guess any final thoughts on just kind of your takeaway from the coverage this year, what people watching this, maybe who are hearing about this for the first time, or people who are maybe on the fence about getting involved in exposing Bilderberg, just any thoughts on what people should take away from this particular meeting?
Well, if we were to take Gideon Rachman, the chief foreign affairs commentator for the Financial Times, at his word, and he was gracious enough to speak with me twice, once at the beginning of the event, once at the end, spoke with media at the end of the event. If we were to take him at his word, then Bilderberg 2025 was pretty regimented, and they, in their panel discussions, their sessions, as some might call them, they didn't deviate from the topics list. That's according to Rachman. No, as far as I'm aware, no one else has spoken about that publicly, at least not yet. Stefano Feltri, an Italian journalist, told me that he'd be writing on his Substack about this year's event, so I'll wait and stay tuned for that. But I think it's of particular interest whether there may have been some deviation from the topics this year, or at least the listed topics, because in the middle of the meeting, or shortly after the meeting started, the hot war between Israel and Iran broke out. So just one session or one single panel discussion on the Middle East, does that make sense? Does that add up given the current circumstances in the world? Well, according to Mr. Rachman, that's all they spoke about it, although he did say that there were discussions in the hallways inside the Grand Hotel about the situation in the Middle East and what's going on between Israel and Iran. So read into that as you may. I know you, Dan, talk a lot about the informal meetings or discussions that you often say and you often argue that are more important than the structured panel discussions in there. So maybe. And you know what? It wasn't just on the inside. On the outside, there was a meeting between Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson and Mark Rutte, now Secretary General of NATO. They had a formal NATO-Sweden meeting shortly after the start of Bilderberg. So whether those discussions were taking place in an actual session in the hallways, or maybe on a boat, or maybe at the formal NATO meeting between Finland and the NATO leadership, between Sweden and the NATO leadership. There are clearly important discussions going on over the past several days, largely about military affairs and all things geopolitics.
Well, I got to say, you did a fantastic job on getting some of these guys to actually open up, be a little bit more candid than they're supposed to be, and to give us a little bit of...
And since then, I've been tracking them off and on for years, and finally, this was the year that God released me to come, partly to cover this, but partly to make an impact here for Sweden for his glory.
That's fantastic. I mean, you managed to confront a few of these guys. Who are some of the notable names you got a chance to speak with?
The biggest one this year was none other than Eric Schmidt, one of the most evil people on the planet and one of the progenitors that Satan has on the earth to bring forth his AI God system. And some believe he will bring in the image of the beast system that will be deployed at some point in the future, where you won't be able to have your own belief system and God's using the Holy Spirit or some other deity, but you will have to worship the beast, just like it's written in the book of Revelation. Now, he was here, and I confronted him, and I confronted another Google guy close to here as well. So that was great.
So you've been getting a lot of views with a lot of these videos online. I mean, it seems a lot of people want to hear this message, that, the spiritual side of this. So tell us a little bit about that journey and what that's been like for you, exposing the global elite, but specifically the spiritual warfare aspect of it.
So many people came and asked what was going on here in this hotel within the last 3 days to me. It was incredible. And I got to tell so many of them that literally On the bilderbergmeetings.org website that you can pull up right now, there is a part about depopulation right there. So I know for sure, that not only are they not even hiding the fact that they want to kill most of the world off for their god Satan, but I can literally just go to the website and figure it out and show people that that's one of the main things that they have in their agenda, depopulation. It's incredible.
Now, this isn't your first time at the rodeo. You've done Davos, I believe. You might be going to Bohemian Grove soon. What else? What other kind of stuff can people expect if they check out your Twitter?
Next month, I plan on standing at the entryway of that Bohemian Grove cult entrance in middle of California or maybe in Northern California. I've been by there before, but I plan on being there with a camera and exposing the treachery that is the Bohemian Grove cult.
I gotta say, I was really surprised to see like 300 to 400 protesters show up here in Sweden. That's just a phenomenal turnout. Just the fact that many people have even heard of Bilderberg here is pretty impressive. What are your thoughts on that?
That was great to see Swedish flags out the other day here, and it seemed like there were over 1,000 people that showed up, and your speech was phenomenal. It was incredible.
I appreciate that. So what would you like to see come out of this kind of stuff? I mean, this is your first time covering it. I'm sure I'll probably see you again, hopefully. I don't know if you have intentions of coming to Bilderberg next year, but what would you like to see come of this type of coverage?
Donald Trump, the president of the United States, which I'm a part of, needs to come out and really put his foot down and stand up to the global elites big time and in a very public way to scare them. And that's the bare minimum that should happen at least this month at some point. So hopefully that can happen at some point under his administration, where they actually put out an official White House statement on depopulation, how wrong it is.
What do you think they mean by depopulation? Because obviously the question is, do they want to increase it or do they want to decrease it?
There was only one man, one Bilderberger this year who even talked about that out in front of the Grand Hotel, and that was a Financial Times guy, the fake news guy. Gideon is his first name. I don't know his last name. He's from England. And he just gave a sanitized version of what they're really planning on doing. I know what they're planning on doing because I've seen the Georgia Guidestones. And on the Georgia Guidestone that had maintained the world's population of 500 million, it's right there for people to see. Not only do they want to kill billions of us, they want to kill so much of us that there's only about 500 million of us left. It's insane.
Yeah. So what would be your kind of main message to people watching right now? Like, what should be the major takeaway here? Or at least what's the main message you want to bring to the Bilderbergers as well?
My main message to the audience is get closer to God, to Jesus, and to the Holy Spirit, and follow them and see what they want you to do in your life. Because at the end of the day, we're in a spiritual war. And Peter Thiel and other globalists who have shown up here, like Albert Bourla, the mass murderer CEO of Pfizer, they're into Satanism. It's clear they're into Satan and they are in a death cult. And the only way to counteract that is to be a force for God, a force for righteousness, a force for good.
Right. So you're kind of here on behalf of doing the good Lord's work to bring the message to what you would describe as, a bunch of Satanists meeting here to tell them to turn from their wicked ways, right?
Literally behind the Grand Hotel where the Bilderberg conference happened this year, there's a giant Masonic lodge. I mean, it's right behind it. It's insane.
So if people are interested in checking out your X or anywhere else that they want to follow you, where should be the best places for them to go?
Follow me on X. It's the best platform of all the big platforms out there. And my tag on there or my handle is at Joseph P. Daniel 1. Joseph P. Daniel 1.
Any final thoughts or final words you want to say to the audience in regards to the spiritual warfare that we're engaged in, and you and I are currently on the front lines of?
It's an honor to follow you, God, in this time. And we may live in the time of the mark of the beast system written about in the book of Revelation being in manifestation on the earth. And I'm willing to die for Jesus and never get the 666 mark of the beast. Never will I get wet. Never.
Well said, man. I just want to thank you for having the bravery and courage to come out here for your first time. I really hope that we'll see you at these other ones, maybe in Canada next year. Who knows? But I want to strongly encourage everybody to check out those links in the description. Give him a follow, and stay tuned to his work because he's doing the Lord's work here, and it's fantastic to see. So thanks for doing what you're doing, man.
You're amazing. I plan on being at every Bilderberg event with you that you go to for the rest of our lives.
Sounds great, man. So stay tuned for our coverage coming next year from the Bilderberg Conference in 2026. Thanks, man.
You're awesome.
All right, everyone. That's going to pretty much do it for my coverage of the 71st Annual Bilderberg Conference here in Stockholm, Sweden. It's been quite a week of coverage. You never really know what you're going to get when you come to cover these types of events. I could get a whole bunch of great stuff. I could get absolutely nothing, but you don't really know unless you try. And I got to say, I'm so grateful and thankful to everybody who has contributed to the Go Get Funding campaign and who has contributed at pressfortruth.ca/donate. I simply cannot do this kind of work without the support and help that comes from you guys, directly from you, the viewers. So I'm so thankful for anybody who has done that, because on the inside of this place, you've got Bloomberg, you've got The Atlantic, you've got The Economist.
From what I was counting, I think there's somewhere around 25 to 26 different press who was on the inside. They're under strict Chatham House rules, so you are not going to get any reporting coming from them. That's for sure. And that's why it's important for guys like me to be here, to be on the front lines, and to try to bring you the truth of what's actually happening at these meetings. Because, as I said, there's been a complete media blackout on it, and this is literally the only way. It's literally the only way. So I really look forward to continuing my coverage. This marks my 19th year of Bilderberg.
19.
Next year will be 2 decades of covering Bilderberg, if you can believe that, guys.
Wild.
So again, thank you so much to everybody who has been with me all along on this crazy, crazy journey. If you have yet to contribute to the GoFundMe campaign or my pressfortruth.ca/donate, please check that top link in the description below if you do support my efforts to do this kind of work, because again, I think it's of the utmost importance in this day and age, especially with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And we know that these are the guys who are pulling the strings, and the puppet string pullers, as I often call them. So I'm not going to let up on my exposure of the Bilderberg Group anytime soon. You can count on that, folks. So that's going to do it for my coverage here, once again, at the 71st Annual Bilderberg Conference in Stockholm, Sweden, guys. Please check the top links in the description below if you want to support my efforts to be here to do this kind of work. Once again, thank you so much to everybody who already has. It's very greatly appreciated, guys. So that's all for today. If you have missed any of the videos that I've done over the past week, be sure to check them all out. They're right there on my website. It's possible you haven't.
Dan Dix, honestly, is like a Canadian hero. Salt of the earth. I don't know him personally, obviously, but I've been following his stuff, and like guys like that, like I just send blessings. I hope that he becomes a millionaire and lives a good life, because he deserves it, and gets some kind of a friggin' medal or something like that from the Canadian government. But it would take, just a lot more information getting out there, and it's not. And we've said why. So this is going to be my last video for a little while. And I'm still going to be posting on my social media. You're going to get a warning if you want to follow me on Instagram still. But it's Dawn Dussault. So DAWN DUSSAULT. Especially on Instagram, I'm more active on there than any of the other social media platforms. And yeah. And so on that note, I will leave it at that. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.